I'm Noah Satern, and welcome to Movies in Minutes. The object of this show is to review one movie in 1 minute. Today, I will be reviewing Halloween movies. Let's begin. First up from Alfred Hitchcock is 1960's Psycho. It was based on the book by the same name of Robert Bloch, and it starred Janet Leigh and Anthony Perkins. One thing unique about this film is that how cheap it was at the time, and the fact that it used the same crew that was used on Alfred Hitchcock's show, Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Also, another thing is its classic shower scene, for which a man stabs a woman through a shower curtain. If you haven't seen the movie, then you've probably seen that scene because it's one of the most famous in movie history. And like all Hitchcock films, he's somewhere in there so you can try and spot him. And of course, another Hitchcock thing is that it uses a MacGuffin, a classic Hitchcock device which works every time, and it works extremely well in this one. Personally, it's one of my favorite movies of all time, and I try to watch it every year, and it just gets better and better every time I see it, from the music and everything. That's Psycho. Next movie. Now let's move on to 1974 with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. One of the most important parts of this film is its feel. It feels raw, has that weird kind of grainy documentary-like look. It almost feels like it's something you'd see out of an old science class or something you'd watch in school. And also, despite a title like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's a relatively bloodless film. You only see just a few spots here and there. The plot is pretty basic in that 5 kids are going to a remote part of Texas and end up getting trapped with a cannibalistic family and the behemoth himself, Leatherface. Tobe Hooper, the director of the film, later went on to work on other things, such as Poltergeist with Steven Spielberg. Personally, I just saw this movie about maybe a month ago, and man, is it creepy. That raw feel just gets under your skin, and I found out it was actually inspired by the real-life serial killer Ed Gein. Become a big favorite of mine, especially the ending gets me every time. All right, that's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Next movie. Now let's go to 1979 with Ridley Scott's Alien. The special effects in this film are probably some of the best you'll ever see, with practical effects, and the simple design of the alien is creepy in itself, done by H.R. Geiger, who was an artist who became very known for that, and it's probably his most famous creation. Also had a famous director, Ridley Scott, who went on to direct many other sci-fi movies, including that of Blade Runner, which is considered to be one of the greatest sci-fi movies of all time. What I like about this movie is that it seems to be almost sort of a haunted house, except in space. It has all the same elements of a haunted house movie, while in a unique sort of sci-fi, almost sci-fi setting. It perfectly balances that horror and sci-fi. Also, the star, of course, is Sigourney Weaver, who's gone on to do tons of other things, including the sequels. And, of course, she was even in Ghostbusters in 1984. This is one that just gets me every time. That's Alien. Next movie. Now on to the 80s with 1984's A Nightmare on Elm Street. This is probably what made Robert Englund, the star of the film, most famous when he played Freddy Krueger in this film and all of its sequels, all the way up to Freddy vs. Jason in 2003. What also makes this film unique is how it portrays dreams. What's unique is that you can never really tell what's a dream and what's not a dream until Freddy shows up or something really weird happens, like an entire house turns upside down, or say the stairs just start to dissolve. And it gets creepier every time. Also, what's unique about this film, one last thing, is that it stars a very, very young Johnny Depp in one of his first movie roles. It's actually pretty funny, and he's one of the weaker roles of the film, in my opinion. This movie gets greater every time I watch it, and it's just a whole lot of fun. And the director, Wes Craven, has gone on to do a lot of other great stuff. That's A Nightmare on Elm Street. Next movie. And now let's end with one of my favorite movies of all time, Halloween from 1978. This was actually one of the first real slasher movies, although there were kind of slasher movies in that of Psycho and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is the movie that inspired the other films like, Friday the 13th or A Nightmare on Elm Street. And these three have become sort of the big titans of horror franchises in the 80s. And if you look closely, there's more than one reference to Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. That in the casting with Jamie Lee Curtis, who was the daughter of Janet Leigh, who starred in Psycho, and the character of Sam Loomis. There's a character who has the same name in Psycho. This one is one of my favorites, and if you really look closely, Robert Englund was involved in the movie. he was what's called a leaf wrangler. He was in charge of making sure when the leaves would blow across the screen that they would be fine. This one gets better every time, and it's probably one of my favorites, especially the music. I love that Halloween theme. That's Halloween. Thank you for joining me. I'm Noah Satern, and this is Movies in Minutes. See you next time.